Alright, 당도 그제 다시라 송지 세디. 지난당 대기 세디 땡게 대화 토야라 안에 이간서 동화의 방고라 동화 봐야라 동화 용의 규조 되가서는 다 다신 마릭 바세들이에서 다 다신 마릭 바디 야 방발라 안에 지게 신의 공바 잠기 신의 토바 잠기 안 다신 마릭 바 방도 말해서 다 신의 톱나야 안 동반이 또제 동반이 또나 다신 마릭 바디 방투리에서는 동반이 또 별로디게 다신 마릭 바디를 뉴욕에 이내야 제 사본나 제바 방투 말해서 대 신의 마토바네 실학 송지 마토바네 지자다 동반이래 미비 실학 송지 검제 니 실학 송지 검발라티네 안 다시 말바데 방고 그래서 지자다 대 방반나 아니 코발을 저거 그래서 장코비 다데 자주 심비 토네 나 실학 송지 검바이나 동반이는 미비 실학 송지 검바이나 당한 저기 태바침비 산교고 방티비 교 제자디네자 된진 바차다 제바 방투고 그래서 방제네 산교고 방투고 그래서 지나다 산교고 방투발아야 동반이는 미비 실학 송지 전주 심비 동반이는 미비 실학 송지 공부 거래 나 코위기 코발을 주나 탈바점 토발아야 동반이는 미비 실학 송지 공부 거래 세상 동반이는 미비 실학 송지 공부 다 탈바다 탐지 캠프 고방 토발아 다 냠는지 조어디디레서 지가 산팅한서 디고 쉬르와.
Good evening. Last week we continued to look at the need to cultivate the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. And as we saw last time, this is because in order to achieve our aim of attaining a state of lasting, stable happiness, we have to completely eradicate all suffering, in particular the root cause from which all suffering arises, the ignorance of self-grasping. And in order to eradicate the ignorance of self-grasping, calm abiding alone cannot harm the root cause of ignorance, or the root cause of suffering, rather. Going along with this, wisdom alone, the wisdom realizing emptiness alone, it too cannot eradicate the ignorance of self-grasping. It can, though, harm it, but wisdom alone cannot eradicate the ignorance of self-grasping. What is required is the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, realizing emptiness. This is required in order to eradicate the root cause of suffering, the ignorance of self-grasping. Moreover, when the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, realizing emptiness, is conjoined with bodhicitta, this is the practice of the bodhisattvas, the practices of the Mahayana, because such a wisdom conjoined with bodhicitta has the power to eradicate not only the ignorance of self-grasping with their seeds, but also the imprints of those seeds, and thereby can lead or will lead to the attainment of Buddhahood itself.
안다데 디던다데다 제르미체 손셰비게 람림 뒤뒤엔 날마 안 손야데디 손거다 제 라미에스 제지 콤베 띵진 두바니 메버치 차 추진 죄바이 소소로 도베 인 소소 도바이야 인루라 요메 신도 템버 네바이 띵진 개버 토니 실라니 손제 주블라 전남이야 찬노스.
Last week then, we looked at the commentary to the verses from Lama Tsongkhapa's Song of Spiritual Experience that our text, the Essence of Refined Gold, is commenting on. Tonight, now, we start by looking at those verses which have to whose commentary we looked at last week. So this is page 47, and my translation's a little different from what you have, but the meaning is the same. What need is there to say that through single-pointed meditative stabilization is achieved? With a precise analysis of individual investigation, generate the stabilization that abides unwavering and steadfast on the actual state of existence. Wondrous are those who, having seen this, strive for the union of calm abiding and meditative insight.
Zeji Gombe Dinzen Jubanis, Sidada, Anzuke, Zeji to me big Yuji like me, Zeji to Nibe Dingers in Shine Juba in a young, Domba to Mebaina, and the Korea Coalitor, Korea, and Zawa, Dazi Maripala, Nugi Mares, Manu Bazan, Dazi Maripa Pantu Mare, Coalitor to Mare, Denzada, Domba Mato Baje, Shine Juba in a on Coalet Targo Mares or the Nadisungua.
The meaning of these verses, these two verses, are what we covered previously. That firstly, the attainment of single-pointed concentration, no matter how powerful, if it's not a single-pointed concentration alone, no matter how powerful, cannot harm the root cause of all suffering, the ignorance of self-grasping, because it is not an antidote to it. Therefore, single-pointed concentration also requires the wisdom realizing emptiness.
Zanda Dingizi, Gomje, Dingizi, Shinian Juba, Zambian, Kovala, Jotugumena, doesn't Maripala, Nugumeva, and the Gomgo Maribesene, then Injimiju Gomgo, Res Murba Chisa, Siduda, Murba Chisa, Sidu, the Injimiju Tarbada, Tamjiki, Mukobala, Dingizi, Shinedi, Injimiju Toku, Res, Top Murba Chisa.
So this then may lead to the question, that is there still a need then to cultivate single-pointed concentration if single-pointed concentration cannot eradicate the ignorance of self-grasping? So why should one, or is there a need to cultivate single-pointed concentration if it isn't going to lead to the attainment of liberation?
Shine the top Kugur, the top of Zamye that Dromotuazan, Digargos and Digalia, Tomba to Locombo, Tobu, Resedita, Sujin Jebai, and a Soso Toba Yika, Inula, Sedita, Sosola Yud, Nawa Nashin, Pa Jeba Nawa Nashin, can do and do it, Soso Tobe, the Jeba Chechen, the Chigi, Nilu Rashin, Condition body. How go res, the how go by na, Tomai to go res or the social topic. In looks at that, Che Tamji Candicina, call Ranshin condition body, Winnie Ranshin condition body, in looks over. The dog resti, Java Cheja, so she near combats me to go much she near to go the inner. They by Java Chetan was so topics, Java Cheja, dog res, Java Gimzen Yada, some Taja, and dog res.
The single-pointed concentration is definitely required, but it has to be conjoined with the wisdom realizing emptiness. The wisdom that comes to understand reality, comes to understand how phenomena abide, the ultimate way that phenomena abide, or the term here in the verse is the actual state of existence, the actual way that phenomena abide. The text then continues, with the precise analysis of individual investigation, generate the stabilization that abides unwavering and steadfast in the actual state of existence. This then is referring to the union of calm abiding, which holds the object single-pointedly, together with meditative insight, which means whilst one's holding the object single-pointedly, individual investigation or analysis can continue. And in this way, one can come to recognize the actual state of existence of all phenomena. In other words, that all phenomena without exception are empty of inherent existence.
The degree of Dian doesn't marry Patu Mare, Tonio Toba, some year doesn't marry Patu Mars. Cesada, she near Tombani let me be a senior to Tombani topic, Lord D and she near to go, Tombani let me she near to go, mother, she near Yobache, and the Tombani Toba near Tisam yet and Denzil Nugumar Patu Mares, and Santa Tombani let me be she near troop chair. I mean, you come over, you may shin to temper never ye, said you may said, don't buy you like teach you to mean, they'll teach you to be shin to buy two.
The line of text abides unwavering and steadfast in the actual state of existence. This indicates that emptiness has been realized, the actual state of existence, the actual way that phenomena abide in reality, that has been realized. Not only has that been realized, but so too has calm abiding, because the consciousness or wisdom can abide unwavering and steadfast on emptiness. Here, the key point again is being made is that one needs the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, conjoined with the wisdom realizing emptiness. The object needs to be emptiness, and it needs to be held with stability of calm abiding, but one must still be able to analyze with precise analysis to realize ever more deeply the way all phenomena abide. So therefore, not only the wisdom realizing emptiness is required, not only or solely is the union of calm abiding required, but these need to be brought together.
Gyatso kuyangbu진ala yago 제도고 디걸 사지디 gyatso yorwa 다 교과 포부지 간 제라는 디 사지 제세데 사지디 배 참어 차려요와 진짜 제야라 갈라카요와 디나시 당보 신의 주바이네 다 동반이라 미시 신의 삼다이도 그 신의 아직 뜻텔이야 장도를 맞진다 남사 디 신의디 레토고 말 가서는 미버 유디 참어 차려요와
When first achieving calm abiding, generally one is encouraged to do so on an object that's much simpler to hold single-pointedly. Usually one is encouraged to do so with relation to a Buddha image. Then when one has achieved calm abiding and is able to hold the image of a Buddha single-pointedly whilst having the arisal of the bliss of physical mental pliancy, when one then tries to hold a subtler object, such as emptiness, one will not be able to hold that single-pointedly. So despite having achieved calm abiding, when it has only been attained on a coarser object, one needs to retrain one's concentration to be able to hold a subtler object undistractedly. So this we can understand through, for example, an athlete such as a gymnast. A gymnast will train and learn to develop certain skills and be able to do certain tricks very well. But in able to be able to do something that is more difficult, she will need to train repeatedly in the new trick. Despite being able to do the old ones well, now has to train in the new ones. So similarly, when one has achieved calm abiding on a coarser object, calm abiding will need to be newly cultivated on the subtler object. It will be much quicker and easier to do, but nevertheless, one will need to retrain on the subtler object.
소스토베 셰랍기 제바체야도 야미바 메테바차르고와 베나가즈 하고 구 충주 구질레네 담보 꿀레미베 제지도 미베신이 줍차웨 제라 양 구델이야 디구디게 제지도 내신병 안에 안에 바제바 셰랍기 제바지데 디구디게 우레 디구디게 샤브레 디구디게 차레 두 제바체도 야 제지니 딩이지네 네마토바 차르고라 du chene ya zeji du ne yang du jeba ya zeji ne jeba du su de ganzam ji ya na dinge jingi de ya zeji de ne xin ba ne xie de ge jeba chena jeba ji tu bu ge da de ne ge jeba je ba ne ya 균균이면 띵인진 제주 네트워크 차고를 대자 실라송 대사 차고로 니나신 동반일이 제주도 니베 신의 주여배나 야 소소도베 제주 내신 병안에 소소도베 셔럽기 제바제야 삼다나 야도 수파 이외로가죠 두 진다 델레 동반일에 제주도 내신 병안에 소소도베 셔럽기도 제바제 간삼질야 안 제바제베게 다 제바제도 되네 같이 제바체나 띵이진의 미요 템부 내세 내려봐제 제바제베 갑라데 띵이진 두세 내내 된 제도게 장베게 제바체나 디도게 장베다 유대 동반이라 제지도 내투하지 띵이진 내투바 즉 레어도 신장게 대외 심비게 되는 레어도 되니까 안에 가서 그래 실라송제 사실 토바래서 나 디로데다 동반이 또 베게다 공발에 되네 다 사번에 제방 투여기 니바이 되는데 니 공발에 되는 로고를 했어야지 그래서 요미 신도 템바에 내바이 띵진 개발 통해 실라 니스 되네기 개발 통해도 실라 송도 했어야지 차고를 해지
process the meditator goes in, they may start off with gaining a realization of emptiness before the realization of calm abiding, or conversely, realize calm abiding before emptiness. There is variety there. But when it comes to, for example, realizing calm abiding initially, it will be on a coarser object, such as a Buddha image. When calm abiding is attained on a Buddha image, or on any object, for example, a Buddha image, the mark or the sign that calm abiding has actually been achieved is not merely that the mind is undistracted and can hold the object for any length of time. Also, the bliss of physical and mental pliancy needs to arise. That is the sign that one has actually achieved calm abiding. Calm abiding, as important as it is, its purpose is to hold the object of meditation without distraction, as we see in the text, unwavering and steadfast. But as soon as the mind wavers, the single point of concentration is lost. So, for example, if it's the object is a Buddha image, as soon as so one has achieved calm abiding, one's experiencing the bliss of physical and mental pliancy, but as soon as the mind wavers, for example, identifying these are the eyes, this is the nose, these are the two ears, that's a wavering mind. There is movement in there is now analysis, identification of parts of the visualization. The mind has moved. Calm abiding on that object is lost. The bliss of pliancy is lost. So here then, the meditator will now strive to develop meditative insight whilst holding the object, the Buddha image, single-pointedly. So here, what they'll do is they'll engage in analysis. The calm abiding will be lost. They'll re-establish calm abiding, re-engage in analysis again. For example, identifying the particular features of the face of the Buddha image. And they'll keep going at this process until they are able to engage in analysis without losing calm abiding. In other words, the physical and mental bliss of pliancy arises whilst holding the Buddha image single-pointedly. They'll be able to analyze, identifying this is the nose, these are the eyes, without losing the bliss of pliancy. And here, that is the sign of the union of calm abiding and meditative insight being attained on the object, in this case, a Buddha image. So this then shows the need for the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, and not merely or only or calm abiding alone. And this is, of course, on the coarse object of a Buddha image, and the same process would go through later with the subtler objects such as emptiness.
Denegi tingi zindi gomba ina, ane nyomoba sabana jiba pang tuyo badi denegi hao che tongje, dene shila songje jubla, shila songje tongne, shila nishe, songje jubla zuenba sede, dene shi tongba ina mibe shila songje ki lamde nyamlen jeba la bezo je, zunju che nanu gomgo re jire.
understanding this process, the practitioner who desires freedom, desires liberation from suffering, they'll want to develop their meditation beyond merely being able to hold a Buddha image single-pointedly or to analyze the Buddha image, but take it further to being able to hold the realization of emptiness single-pointedly and then to be able to analyze deeper. In other words, develop the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, realizing emptiness. And this is now that the text emphasizes with the following lines. Abides unwavering and steadfast on the actual state of existence. Wondrous are those who, having seen this, strive for the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. Wanting to gain freedom, the practitioner will make great effort to develop the union of calm abiding and meditative insight in relation to emptiness, because they understand that this is how the ignorance of self-grasping, together with its seeds, will be eradicated and freedom will be attained.
Denigi masigi shila tombani la mibe shila sondregi lodi ne chike masarche nibe chembo sedabe nibe chembo ya shure sigor da gaje nyomo bati sabona cheba pantubi nibe yege denigi nibe yegen denigi lodi chabardo papege yenden denichi 할래와 지레스 제산디 고미알이야 안전시 선반 위도스 냠네 나디 곰제 닌 드바 탐제 빵제 상유고 버터버 지고래 대장하라 주인이 데니게 동반이 신의 주비하다 동반이를 미비기 되는 실라 손레기 곰투에게 된다려야 안 소사 직장제야다 안 데니게 야 될 뭐바지 데 토비하게 된다라 몰람제야다 두신 제고래 성승보로다.
In this verse, Lama Tsongkhapa uses superlatives such as wondrous or fantastic. And the purpose of using this is to emphasize how wonderful it is, those who are striving with sincerity to achieve the union of calm abiding and meditative insight on emptiness. Because of the power of this mind, there is inconceivable benefit. Being able to not only realize emptiness, but do so with the union of calm abiding and meditative insights. Therefore, Lama Tsongkhapa is using the superlative here. And he's doing so to encourage us to aspire to engage ourselves just like the yogins are, and to make prayers to be able to do so ourselves.
Dene enjada tombani la mibi shila sonje ngomyo de dene janju samba namje nyamlen de la ne kaso nyamsha namka tabyo tombani seda ane jetup gyuma debyo ane tombani nyamsha dosine nyamlen nana sungore standa de den ma de sungore de dabi shila sonje la nyambara shabige namka tabyo ki twebe 타 탐제단 제외 동반일에 제주도 냠버 샤네 델레 랑베 제도도 랑기 랑신이 마주견 대דר 나위 규마다비 동반이 이거네 닌제단 자주기 셈기 심비에 탑시 손도 제비 냠는기 계세기 주베 바로도 좋아니 신동 아바로 외라스 아니 데덴마 아니 대דר 또네 다시 야마르와 람초르베 쳔바 메바르 탑시 송제기 람라 로발라 가사남기 루임베 데더베 고데스.
The commentary now continues. So again, my translation is slightly different. Meditative Equipoise, so it's still on page 47. Meditative Equipoise is the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, a contemplative, single-pointed equipoise on emptiness, free, like the sky, of all fabricated extremes. When arising from that meditative equipoise, in subsequent attainment, consider all that appears, although not existent by way of its own nature, as like a magical illusion. Through practicing the union of method and wisdom, meditation on emptiness conjoined with compassion and bodhicitta, perfect the transcendent way of life of bodhisattvas, which is worthy of high praise. Understanding that, do not be content with an approach limited to focusing solely on either method or wisdom. It is imperative that you exert yourself in the path that is the union of method and wisdom, the spiritual legacy of people of good fortune.
Na deta be shila songje se de da de jinye le she ga zo tongba ni la mi bi ge shila songje ge lo de ga je ta tongba ni be do be lo de re tongba ni do be lo di ne le ya nyam pro sha be ge nam ga da be zhe bi ge ta tham je dan zhe yue tongba ni la ji ji nyam pro sha ba sa nyam pro sha ne se de da dan nam ga se de la ji ge to ba da re ba da de ni i bi kan ya me ba tong sang ji ma do yo ma ro wa je sa 동반일에 지지도 냠바 샤비 갑라 안에 남가다 보레스 제가 최강양 매바 지금 동상하지마도 가야 샤고 말했지 ben에 카도다 입다 안에 지게 셰발라서 바다 데네지 가야 매 동상하지마도 요 말했 남가다 비 쮸바 탐제단 자와 세디 데니게 타단 제비 다된 동일에 지지도 냠바 샤바디 데닝이 냠바 동반을 냠바 샤비 냠샤비 내갑디 단달라 갈라고 선데라 남가다비 남가다비 아니 동반이 곰소시 올다 가지데 동반이 동반이라 냠바 샤시베 내갑기 로텔라 람데라다 동반이 남가다비 동반이 곰소시 거로와.
The first sentence, meditative equipoise is the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, a contemplative single-pointed equipoise on emptiness, free like the sky of all fabricated extremes. So the first part of the sentence is precisely what we've been looking at previously. Meditative equipoise is a union of calm abiding and meditative insight on emptiness. Or in the sentence, it's expressed in two ways. The second being, meditative equipoise is a contemplative, in other words, analytical, single-pointed, which is calm abiding, equipoise on emptiness. So meditative equipoise has as its object emptiness, and it is a consciousness that is a union of calm abiding and meditative insight. So that is what we have been discussing previously, the need to cultivate the union of calm abiding and meditative insight on emptiness. And the sentence continues, it is free like the sky of all fabricated extremes. So we can say like the sky or like space, it's the same word. And the meaning is, all phenomena, without exception, are empty. They are empty completely. No matter what your object is, it is empty. If one is meditating on a coarse object, it is empty of true existence. If you're looking at its aspects, such as its color, the color of the object, or the shape of the object, they too are empty of true existence. And so too is the consciousness realizing that phenomena. Or if the phenomenon that is being investigated, that itself is a consciousness, it too is empty of true existence. All phenomena are empty of true existence.
만던달라 냠샤 남가다비 동반이 수데 냠바라 샤페 내갑라 유 동반이라 제지도 내셰 안 제지도 내제 냠바라 샤셰비 산 삼로 가야 마다 동반이 코로 제지도 내 딩에치 곰디베 내갑티시고래 데니게 곰디베 또 로데라 딩에진데라 동반이 또 베기 동반이라 제지도 곰디베 실라 손리기 로데라 켐바데라 안민가어서 냠샤 남가다비 동반이 있으데려야 유 동반인마도 셴 가야 능거 말와 제가 냠자 냠바 샤비告诉 다 남가나 동상시마 동반인마도 셴 가야 능거 말이 제가 데니게 동반이 제주도 냠바 샤비기 내갑기 냠자 이些 동반이 냠자 이些 데라 민가라서 냠자 남가다비 동반이 있어요 제주도 공부도 숨고래.
This first sentence is about a particular consciousness, which is a wisdom of meditative equipoise. The wisdom of meditative equipoise, then, within that term is contained that this is a consciousness that is a union of calm abiding and meditative insight, realizing emptiness. So it's able to hold the object, emptiness, single-pointedly, and whilst holding it single-pointedly, one can, the yogin can meditate further, coming to an ever more profound realization of emptiness. So the sentence again, meditative equipoise is the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, a contemplative, single-pointed equipoise on emptiness, free, like the sky, of all fabricated extremes.
Dele langbe Jethoptu Rashin Gimatrup Jan Jeter now Gumatabu Tombani Gom Seduda that Nyamsha Su Langche, Nyamsha Su Dangche, Jetop Sur, Nyamsha Supa, Nyamba Shava the Dangche, Danganzu, Jiyama, Paso Pea, Shana Gish, Chutia, Javachia, and Jiggy Chobo Pia, the Negi, and Jimbe Yamna Sudrin Yamna, the Negi Jetop Surwa, the Nyamsha de la Su Lang Savarda. 다 되니게 제도비 내가 소당 저게 가르는 거라서는 유 다마는 거로 지금 저게 지게 수치 수당 자당 되니게 유 로려다 말는 거로 봐 나에도 제도부터 라신이 마줍자 대다 나비 이게 다 라신이 주요 말 랑근원의 주요 말데 이내 로를 나에도 랑원의 주바 나시지 받는 거래 는 거래 지단 나요도 갑라 아니 그런 게 가르침 거라서는 지다 되는 나와 탐지 Yumata Bonas Memato, now an Ashin Saw the Yomare, Sambe Samnoch Kogo, Denik Lam, Samnoch Kogo, and this Samno Della, that Jetu Yumata was or Jetu Yumata will come suicide. The Jetu Blue Sushan Sarva. Ninjiki Shime, the Yelan Jetu Sushi, the Miture, Amchola Jaguar, and the Jala Toya, or the Shingdo Magotoyro, Chazan Garnanguna, Nang du Kabla Garnangos, and Rashin to Nangores. On the Nang du Korongas, Nang Rashin Nangorte, Koronga Samlo Carcos, or the Nawan Shinji. Rangun to Bazawa now and as our Mea Sambe Samlo Kugo, essere. Jesan Yumana Chires, the name Samlo Kovi, Chambatella, the Jetu Yumata or come through.
The sentence we've just looked at is about a particular wisdom, the wisdom of meditative equipoise. Now we come to the second sentence, which is about the wisdom of subsequent attainment. When arising from that meditative equipoise, in subsequent attainment, consider all that appears, although not existent by way of its own nature, as like a magical illusion. So here the meditator, having meditated on emptiness with the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, coming to realize that all phenomena are empty of their abiding by way of their own natural existence, when they arise from that meditation and engage in various beneficial activities to help others, they keep in mind that all that appears to their consciousness, whether it's objects that they see or they hear or they taste, all that appears, despite appearing as being truly existent, do not exist in the way they appear. So in brief, the yogin is aware that everything that appears to consciousness in subsequent attainment, in other words, subsequent to the realization on emptiness, all that appears, despite appearing to exist by way of its own nature, does not exist in the way that it appears. And rather, they relate to these appearances as being like a magical illusion. So I'll read the sentence again. When arising from that meditative equipoise in subsequent attainment, consider all that appears, although not existent by way of its own nature, as like a magical illusion.
The Australia, that premier to Bombo Pal, Geshe Thubten Rabten, Panai, court meeting one name by Nangora, one name but no coron, one name Kishigo, but Nangora, as Nangorte, in there, also some other the meeting one name, Maria, some big some much matter, the Mingone, some big some much Yomarwa, the Mingone, some big some loina, the Lord the Losh Child. It is that the Korongi Sunji Nangore Mato, Nangone, Nangor in there, when a Marwa, when it is a big some of the Saugin, same ding Merwa. 지난 장슈 선바 남기 동반이디 두 전에 검제 냠샤나서 동반요 검배 뉴비 슈기建议 다 제도블 현재 유가를 나베네 나와나 신진원에라네 랑응원이 두바 능고 나와나 랑응원이 두바 자기는 요말에 선배게 삼로시디 걸고 그래제 되니게 삼로들라 나 유마다고 제도 유마다고 세 동반이 검 삼당하서 이내 디기 동반이 또 별로 레베스네 디 동반이 또 별로 말해 제 지금 뭐저 가서 냠냠샤 말봐 나와나시 요 말에 선배다 제도비게 되니게 지리고와 삼로시오래제 되니게 람데라 고메아딜라 제도 규마다비게 검수세 디스모르.
With modern technology, we can understand quite well what is meant here. For example, when you're watching television, what appears to us appears to be real. What appears to us, we believe that it exists in the way that it appears. For example, if you're watching the news, it's as if the Prime Minister is right there, and we relate to this appearance as if it is true, as if it is real. But in reality, what is appearing is actually much closer, or be more correctly to relate to it, as being like a reflection, rather than as if the Prime Minister, for example, was really there. A bodhisattva, though, who's a skilled meditator, will have come to realize through the meditative equipoise on emptiness that no phenomenon exists in the way that it appears. So here, they will recognize that an object such as what we are seeing on television is no different from a reflection or a magical illusion. And all, not just what they see on television, all that appears to their consciousness, they will recognize as being similar to a magical illusion. Does not exist in the way that it appears. So this understanding is not this consciousness that understands this is not a consciousness or wisdom that is realizing emptiness, because it is not a meditative equipoise. Rather, it is a subsequent attainment. Here, all that appears to mind is being related to as being like a reflection or like an illusion.
안도 전주 선반남 유도스 공고레스 되네 용고레스 대인자다 니제나 자주의 셈 세되다 셈게 심비 탑시 손주제비 냠nen지 개세계 주비 바로도 침바 조원의 신동하고 왜 세되다 전주 선반남기 니제다 자주의 셈게 심비 탑시 손주제비 람년에 네 개세계 주비 바로도 침바 조원의 나바 왜라 세되 나가제 전주 선반남기 심진 동안 나와 실미데 심진 동안 나와 미체 될래야 니제 고묘도 지상 심진디게 차서 나와나 하시 랑응원이 주바사디 매야 선배게 삼로치다 심진 탐지파 르파르 따삼 샤바점이레스 지상 데니게 동안 내외 동안 되게 이나양 팔르파 따바 샤바점마도 랑응원이 주드게 자와기네 요 말에지 두삼다제네 전주 심진 데니게 라신이 마주비기 다 심진 탐지 동안다 잔나 심비기 어두스 인지 고미하다 나 전주 심 공비갑리네 다 심진 탐지기도 상요고방 토벌지 토벌쇼 심비기 전주 심비 공바이네 네고 톱자 상지요고방디야 상계세디야 가 딩아주 롤 나디가다 랑외도 주바 난거 나와나시 랑외니 주바사 자오기네 요말 고파파 뢰파 电想起来对呢对法大把这么有嘛的然后呢这把啥就呢没了这样第 톱지게 람 냠는 곰리아디야然后呢这把的没什么就是这样的톱자 상지고 고파디야然后呢这嘛这把法律大把这么电竞这个就有吧有吧的什么都是的公布写起安讲是什么公明的安你就公明的都是公布了这嘞
Then the next sentence in the paragraph, through practicing the union of method and wisdom, meditation on emptiness, conjoined with compassion and bodhicitta, perfect the transcendent way of life of bodhisattvas, which is worthy of high praise. So here, the bodhisattva is engaging in the practice of the union of method and wisdom. Wisdom being the wisdom realizing emptiness, and method being all other practices. I'll read the part of the sentence again. Through practicing the union of method and wisdom, meditation on emptiness conjoined with compassion and bodhicitta. So here, the bodhisattva has generated a wisdom realizing emptiness, compassion, and bodhicitta. Generating compassion is the strong wish for all sentient beings to be freed of suffering, not just coarse manifest suffering, but the slightest suffering or the possibility of suffering, to be liberated from suffering. Bodhicitta is the determination of the bodhisattva to become a Buddha for the sake of others. And with such a motivation, the wisdom realizing emptiness is cultivated, because it is the wisdom that is required to eradicate the afflictions, and when it's conjoined with bodhicitta, will lead to the attainment of Buddhahood and the fulfillment of the aspiration of a bodhisattva to become the most skilled of guides, to be able to lead all beings to the attainment of their own enlightenment. So here, the bodhisattva generates compassion and then bodhicitta, and with such a motivation, they enter into the meditation on emptiness. So here, this is the meaning of the sentence, meditation on emptiness conjoined with compassion and bodhicitta. First, compassion and bodhicitta is generated, and then, in the same meditation session, emptiness is realized. When emptiness is realized, only emptiness is arising, only emptiness appears, but that still is being held or conjoined with compassion and bodhicitta. This is the motivation of the bodhisattva. Emptiness is being realized so as to become a Buddha for the sake of others, not merely to attain one's own individual liberation. And that then points to the second part of the sentence. In this way, perfect the transcendent way of life of bodhisattvas, which is worthy of high praise. In other words, the goal of a bodhisattva is being achieved through this meditation. The way the bodhisattva meditates is with, on one hand, compassion and bodhicitta, and on the other, the wisdom realizing emptiness. And this is applied to all objects of meditation. So whether it is the path, the mind that is engaged in meditation, when that is taken as an object, it is seen to be empty of true existence. The goal of Buddhahood, when that is taken as the object, that too is recognized as being empty of true existence. Likewise, the beings, suffering sentient beings, for whom one is striving, they too are recognized as being empty of true existence, as is the meditator. So in this way, the yogin comes to recognize that all objects are empty of true existence.
다 탑시 손도 제비 냠린지 제시게 줘봐 바로죠. 탑시 손제시에 탑 아니 장슈셈 아니 셰랍 동이 동방이 도베 셰랍 시고로와 그래서 탑시 손제게 냠린 가르치고 제시게 줘봐서도 아주 진비에 냠는 주제냐 수변이 좀 장슈셈에 줘봐 냠는 파싱 주스로와 냠는 제다 승고래. 그래서 다심제 탐식이 된 산조 고방 토벌 지기인세 토벌쇼 셈베 장슈셈이 군내랑 디 된다랑 이 진비 냠는 지구에서 진비 냠는 제비 갑라 심제 탐식 산조 고방 토벌쇼 셈베 장슈셈제 디 토비 칠동의 진비 냠는 지기인세 진비 냠는 제비 갑라 다 갈소르지 진바세데 진바 동어배 강사 코랑 아니 가소레 라신 주바요 말에 진비 제대 라신 주바요 말에 네 동외 셈바 코로나의 진바 라신 주바요 말 진바 동서 유디야 라신 주바요 말에서 배자 진바 동서 유디 진바 동위게 제제 진비 제대제 진바 동외 삼바체 진바 동배 강사 컨디션 디소치야 라신 주바요 말에서 배게 삼단위 토네 진비 냠는 군론 장시심지 군내랑 데니기 라신이 마주바 삼 제수차자 라신이 마주바리에 선배 토네 아니 냠는 제바 진배 냠는 제바이나 탑시 송지 요건에 진배 냠는 제바시오라 니 나신 탑시 장시심 요건에랑 수줌소에 갑레이네 라신이 마주바 삼다지 수줌소에도 아니 탑시 송지 요건에 수줌 냠는 제바 제산디 진바 수줌 제바 준비 차상 군론 장시심 요건에랑 가래 냠는 제바이나 랑고 라신 주바 자오이네 요마레 선배 삼다제 안도스 냠네 제리 갑라 안 탑시 손제기 제시기 제바 바로도 신비게 조 아니 바로 치마 조와 냠 냠서 레나디 나파 신도 나파리 나고 외바리 시도 빼마서 야보레서 차상기 땡아 땅나 전주스 냠네 제 차상기 땡아 땡고래 산지에 나고 주고래 땡아보 외바데 윤딘 나나 지디게 윤데 차상 상다와지레서 나보 외라세데.
This is a sentence of great importance. There's deep meaning here. Through practicing the union of method and wisdom, meditation on emptiness, conjoined with compassion and bodhicitta, perfect the transcendent way of life of bodhisattvas, which is worthy of high praise. Method and wisdom. Method then refers to all the meditations and practices of a bodhisattva, excluding that of meditating on emptiness. That alone is included in wisdom. A bodhisattva engages in both of these practices together. Hence, through practicing the union of method and wisdom, the union then shows that they are together. And this is expressed twice in the sentence, meditation on emptiness conjoined with compassion and bodhicitta. So when it's referring to the meditative equipoise on emptiness, compassion and bodhicitta is generated, and then emptiness is realized. So in this way, in meditation, there is the union of method and wisdom. Outside of meditation, when engaging in beneficial activities, wisdom is still utilized. Not just the method side, which is the beneficial activity, but so too is wisdom, the wisdom understanding reality. And that's then expressed in the last part of the sentence. Perfect the transcendent way of life of bodhisattvas, which is worthy of high praise. What this refers to, perfect the transcendent way of life of bodhisattvas, is the emptiness of the three spheres, or the emptiness of the threefold conception. So this refers to the object of meditation, the meditating mind, as well as the meditator, or the beings for whom the meditation is done. All three are recognized as being empty. So for example, the bodhisattva in meditative equipoise has realized emptiness, rises from meditation, and engages in beneficial acts. So for example, the beneficial act of generosity, the offering substance, whether it's a material object or whether it's a teaching being given, that is recognized as being empty of inherent existence, the first of the three spheres. The second is the mind engaging, so the activity, whether it's the wish to give or the wish to teach, that is recognized as being empty of inherent existence. And thirdly, the being involved, whether it's a meditator, the person giving the teaching or making the act of generosity, or the person for whom it's being done, is recognized as being empty of inherent existence. So in this way, whilst engaging in an act of generosity, which is on the method side, the wisdom side is utilized by recognizing that all three aspects are, or all three spheres, are empty of inherent existence. And this is how a bodhisattva lives their life. They engage in beneficial activities, the method side, whilst being aware of emptiness, the wisdom side. And such a skillful way of practicing is indeed worthy of high praise. And that is the meaning of the sentence. Through practicing the union of method and wisdom, meditation on emptiness conjoined with compassion and bodhicitta, perfect the transcendent way of life of bodhisattvas, which is worthy of high praise.
Lam Simba Mebara Tashi Sunrigi Lamla Loba and Gasan Namki Lugimbe, Detar Peku Sidu, Detar Tone Sidu, that Denigi, Lam Tapshini Sunrich combine, you then Chapel to Papa Imbadi, and there you about Hakone, and Tapshi Yadevi Lamla. Lamdi Chorewares, Lam Chorewares, Chochikres, Tapshi Yajawa Lamna, Domba New Comche, Janjusem Magomba Ina, Sanjoko to Maragas, Shopalmado, Jigmado Yomares, or Yajawares, the Tab Sherp Combamado, Tab Janjusem Gumbo Mares. Jayanda Janjusem Yakom, Domba Nimagomba Ina, Yan Tap Gomba, Janjusem Gomba, Domba Nimagomba Ina, then and Digian, Sanjoko to Mare, Tapshi Yajawas, Yacharo. 지나 야 맞아 갖고 그래 니가 공부를 했으나 지나 탑시 야제비 람라 초려 바레스 지사 초직마도 공고 바레 지사 침반며 바스 전주 선반남기 되바 침고 말레스 다 디디그레 되바 디디그레 선배 요마다 어디 지금은 디 공고도 뺀 동반이 찍고 검자매 지금도 전주 선 공고 섬전 탐지기도 산조고바 토이도 공고 선비게 삼라 용거마도 디게 되바 침고 말 초려와 공면 지사 전주 선반남기 탑시니가 야마저 송제진 공고래서 군원 장슈심주 군내랑 안데 안에 지진배나 냠나 계조 가래 두배네 당보 군원의 장슈심주 군내라 심지어 탐지기도 산요고방 토벌쇼 선배 토배체도 인인 선배게 군원 장슈심주 군내랑 근데 계조 가래 제배이네 대차상 나라라신 바랑 문을 두바세 따오기는 요마레서 비 두삼다제 안직 진바의 수준 수비에 전에 계조가 두번의 두신 능고레스 제가 디네 인자 탑시 송제지는 고모디 람라 로바 디네게 냠람 장도르 제아바디 가사 남기 룩소레 가사세데 장슈셈바 장슈셈바 남기 람냠는 제다레스 내 대달 배우에 생활하지 나 디네 냠는 제고리 세고르다
Further point to bring out from the sentence, perfect the transcendent way of life of bodhisattvas. So this is translating the single term for the perfections, as in the 6 perfections, in the 2 ways that it means. So on one hand, it means the perfections. Now, another way it can be translated as transcendent, because it carries the meaning of the bodhisattva through practicing with the union of method and wisdom will take each of these qualities, these mental qualities such as generosity or ethics, and perfect them. In other words, Buddhahood will be achieved and those qualities are perfected. The second, so that would be where the translation of perfection is used. The second is transcendence or transcendent, where one transcends, where an ordinary mind of generosity or ethics and so forth transcends the ordinary to the transcendent, the state of Buddhahood. And that is done through the union of method and wisdom. And the second way of understanding the term transcendent comes from the literal gone beyond, going beyond the ordinary, the samsaric, to the extraordinary of Buddhahood. So perfect the transcendent way of life of bodhisattvas carries these 2 meanings of the 6 perfections are practiced together. So whichever perfection whichever practice on the method side is practiced together with wisdom. So thereby, all that the bodhisattva does leads to that training being perfected or becoming transcendent. In other words, leading to the attainment of enlightenment for the sake of others. Then the text continues, understanding that, do not be content with an approach limited to focusing solely on either method or wisdom. It is imperative that you exert yourself in the path that is the union of method and wisdom, the spiritual legacy of people of good fortune. Understanding that, understanding the importance of method and wisdom, here we are being encouraged, do not be content with an approach limited to focusing solely on either method or on wisdom. Here we are being encouraged to look within and seeing if we have a bias or an inclination towards either the method side or the wisdom side. So either practices such as bodhicitta or practices such as the wisdom realizing emptiness. If we notice an inclination towards the one or the other, we need to guard against being influenced by that. Because just like a bird that needs to fly in order to arrive at its destination, such a bird requires the use of both wings, so too, the bodhisattva, to achieve their goal of becoming a Buddha for the sake of others, needs to cultivate both the wisdom side of practice as well as the method side. So be aware of being either limited by focusing on method or wisdom, or becoming under the influence of one's own particular preference or inclination. And a further meaning in this verse is that the bodhisattva, in order to achieve their goal, in all their practices, utilizes both method and wisdom. So whether it's meditation on emptiness, this will be conjoined with the prior cultivation of a motivation of bodhicitta. So therefore, in meditation on emptiness, both method and wisdom is cultivated, or in between sessions, in subsequent attainment, whilst engaging in activities of the method side, such as generosity, ethics, and so forth, wisdom is still utilized. With all that appears, the bodhisattva reminds herself that it does not exist in the way that it appears, but is rather appearing in a way similar to an illusion or a reflection. And lastly, the sentence concludes with the spiritual legacy of people of good fortune. That those people of good fortune here refers to bodhisattvas. So we are being encouraged to practice just like those of good fortune, bodhisattvas, and train in both the method and wisdom side, both in meditation as well as between meditation sessions.
And then, and then I give it Java career to in the Tuya Tambo, and this so Jigga Rang Jen Shen Guda Jen Shen La Dune Tuba Chimato, Kala Motiva Rang when you droop to so in Yomara, Sambigi, the nigger some dance and give it out to Hores, Denichelia, Besuchi Hores, or the Begueti, the name that some of the Comshimbo Meva and Dijan Besuchi in the Tambo or Besuchi Hores, and Besuchi and the Gilligation got Antique Lela Hores or Sungorva.
How we should relate to this then is whatever activities we engage in, they should be virtuous, of course. And before engaging in them, we cultivate the motivation of bodhicitta, recognizing that we are about to engage in this activity in order to help create causes for all beings to be freed of suffering through our attainment of enlightenment and becoming a skilled guide. So we generate bodhicitta before engaging in the activity. Whilst engaging in the activity, whatever it may be, we keep in mind both that motivation of bodhicitta as well as wisdom. In other words, all that appears to me, whether it's my motivation of bodhicitta, whether it's thoughts about the activity or of the activity itself or the beings for whom I'm doing this activity, all these objects of thought do not exist in the way they appear. Nothing exists by way of its own nature. All arises in dependence on causes as well as imputation by mind. So that is how we need to live our lives. And because we don't have a strong habituation to this, we need to strive, we need to make extensive effort to establish a habit in thinking like this. In other words, we need to establish a habit in living our life in this way, engaging in virtuous activities under the influence of the motivation of bodhicitta, whilst also keeping the realization of emptiness in mind too.
Lam Rim Text, Nyamsha Namka Tabi Tony Tang, Chetu Kuma Tabi Tombani, Gomne, Tapshi Sundu Jawai, Geshe Thubten Rabten, Dedar Tony, Chori Lamgi, Simba Mepakasa Namki Luz, she soon said that.
The meaning of what I've just presented is the commentary now to the next two verses from Lama Tsongkhapa's Song of Spiritual Experience. In meditative equipoise, emptiness is like space. In subsequent attainment, emptiness is like an illusion. Through meditating on the union of method and wisdom, the perfect transcendent conduct of bodhisattvas is praised, realizing that it is the way of those of good fortune to not be content with either path alone.
Nyamja Namga de Tombani said, Shevana, that Tombani let me be Shila Sundio Com China, Shila Sun Top Savage and Shusemba Namgi, that you Tombani let in a Zidu, Nyamba Shabigi, Nyamba Shadwe, Nyamja Yishitela, 냠샤 냠마 남가도 동반이 세지 다들이 동반이 세데 동이 레고마다 데레 유 동반이래 제시도 냠바샤샤베기 냠바샤비 띵인진데라 미 냠샤 남가도 동반이 세데 유이데 동반이 세야 되네게 동반이도 거야게 제 유이들에 가서는 동반이래 데라 동반이래 제시도 냠바샤샤베기 띵인진 데라 냠샤시에서 그래 데라 냠샤시 데라 아니 나야 데라 동상 지마 동반이면 제 가야 능거 말 매반자 냠샤 남가다고 동반이 세데 도시는 찬송 거래 뉴다 동반이도 동반이를 지주 냠바시 냠샤시 고랑 송래데.
The first line, in meditative equipoise, emptiness is like space. This is what we've looked at earlier. So just to emphasize, what does the term meditative equipoise mean? The consciousness is one that is a union of calm abiding and meditative insight, and the object is emptiness. So emptiness has been realized with the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. So this wisdom is realizing emptiness in a manner that is unwavering, undistracted in any way, but can still analyze deeply. And all that appears to such a meditative equipoise is emptiness. So this is the meaning of meditative equipoise. It is a consciousness that is a union of calm abiding meditative insight, and it is a consciousness of wisdom that is realizing its object, emptiness. And all that appears is emptiness.
냠샤 남가데베 동반이 냠샤시도 냠하셰베 로하샤고 남가데베 동반이스도 동이 냠바셰베 냠샤시 남가나시 동반이레 사지 삼다와네 디고 말고 동반이 레라고 말에 그 유디 다행한서 찍다 되네 톱트가 삼다네 냠샤 남가다버디 냠바셰베시디 냠샤세디 데 남가다버디 동반이레 그 딱바레 사지 삼다디 디고 말 디마레 다 냠샤다베스 유 냠샤 냠바시베 냠샤시디서 니 유가 레라네 동상 남가나요 동상이 동반이들 미콤고래서디 유디시 고래 맞다 유가를 미고서 동반이를 미도 곰비 냠샤시에서 더나디고 고래.
In meditative equipoise, emptiness is like space. All that appears in meditative equipoise is emptiness. If in meditative equipoise one has the thought, emptiness is like space, now more is arising than emptiness, because one is going to misunderstand this and think that if emptiness is like space, then emptiness is a permanent phenomenon, like space or the sky. So that would be an error, because all that is arising is the realization of emptiness. So this is the mark of being in meditative equipoise. In terms of the consciousness, it's a union of calm abiding meditative insight, and the object is emptiness and emptiness alone.
다 제도 규마 대비 동반이 시대다 동반 제도 규마 대비 동반이 시대다 제도게 출은 제도를出现的 갑라다 유 자당 수당这个가래 나베나 로랴 나용도 갑라 랑원의 주바는 거리네야 대속에 동반이 냠샤 동반이 공배 슈기 아니 가래 나베네 랑원의 주바 나와 나신 사와진의 요 말에 선배 삼로지 고고 숭 되네게 삼로 고고레스 되네게 삼로 데라 제도 규마 대비 동반이 있어 동반이 삼다위 로시오르다.
When in meditative equipoise, all that appears is emptiness. So it's likened to space in that only the one object appears, as if one was realizing a permanent phenomenon such as space. Then in the second line, in subsequent attainment, emptiness is like an illusion. In subsequent attainment, so when not in meditative equipoise, then all that appears to mind, whether it's sound or form and so forth, all that appears to mind is related to as being like an illusion. As being like an illusion.
이 곰네 탑시의 송도 제와 이 개세 주변 바로 조왕아 시대다 대징한전 의미 대대 가르간주 전주심비 죄바 전주심바디게 람냠네 가르체베나 탑시의 송직이 토네 냠는 지고래 해야지 다 탑세야 딩한주디네 다 심지어 탐지 산요고바 토발 제비게 군노 전주심지 군내라 군노 탑제 군노제 디 토네다 진바다 추제나 쇠바 준주 삼된 가래 냠는 체베네야 Geshe Thubten Rabten Dalai this chasa shenjila tuene tenje tene juba mato kanglai ma rangun juba sa zaugin yomare rangun juba tike tongsang tongba jire sanbege dujin denege samnataje and 제자 진비 냠내 제야데 두스체데 지고라 군로와 전주심 요군에라 안네 델야는 대수 진비 냠내디가 랑응원도 주바세야데 매 규다게 샹라 떼바마다 강라이 마 떼바 랑응원도 주바세 자기는 요마레 세비 삼다 안진비 냠내 제야다 된 수준 냠내 제바이나 심자 탐주도 산조고바 토바지 군로와 전주심 요군에랑 안 수준 송야기 안 송외 셈바다 안 제수 가자다 샤사 랑응원도 주바세 자기는 매 선배기 누스체네 삼다제 느지게 네 Geshe Thubten Rabten Gyatso Chobal Pa Labdutine Legore Jerwa.
The verse concludes with, through meditating on the union of method and wisdom, the perfect transcendent conduct of bodhisattvas is praised. This too then is just like in the commentary before. And the meaning is that in subsequent attainment, whatever the bodhisattva does is, on one hand, motivated by bodhicitta, and on the other, is influenced by their realization of emptiness. And in this way, they are always practicing with the union of method and wisdom, whether in meditation or between meditation sessions. So when they, for example, engage in practices such as generosity, ethics, patience, and so forth, they do so with an understanding, or firstly with the motivation of bodhicitta, and conjoined with this is an influence from their realization of emptiness, that all that appears does not exist in the way that it appears to mind. So for example, I presented earlier the illustration with generosity, so now I'll present it with the next perfection, that of ethics. When the bodhisattva in subsequent attainment is engaging in an act of ethical restraint, they will do so with the motivation of bodhicitta, as well as with an understanding of emptiness. So they'll understand that the being that they are interacting with in an ethical way is empty of true existence. Their mind of ethical conduct, the activity, that too is empty of true existence, as well as they themselves as a practitioner is empty of true existence. And if they engage in a particular activity itself, other than just the reflection of ethical restraint, that too is empty of true existence. So therefore, the object, the activity, usually the meditating consciousness, as well as the person or persons involved, are all empty of true existence. So in this way, whilst the bodhisattva in subsequent attainment is engaging in ethical restraint, they are doing so with an understanding of the emptiness of the three spheres.
Lam Rim Maduba Samdaji Yamle Chevade, Nabares, Navasede, Sanje Janjusemba, Sanji Koba Topsa, Lam Din Yamlen Jebal in the Sanjo Koba Tobare, Janjusemba, Maomba, Sanjo Koba, Lam Din Yamlen in the Sanjo Koba Tobore, Lam Dile Hava, Sanjo Koba Toyala, Denige Tapshus on Rigi Comje, Lam Yamlen Jeba, Dile Hava, Yomar, the Yashore, and big Jisam the Navarua, Nasur, Disimurua.
The same two lines, through meditating on the union of the union of method and wisdom, the perfect transcendent conduct of bodhisattvas is praised. So again, we see here the translation, perfect and transcendent together, giving those two meanings to what's usually translated as either perfections or transcendences. So here the meaning again is that through practicing in this way, with the union of method and wisdom, the bodhisattva will perfect all good qualities and achieve the transcendent state of Buddhahood. And that way of living one's life is worthy of the highest praise. This is the unmistaken path to Buddhahood. It is the path that all Buddhas have tread themselves. It is the path that all bodhisattvas have cultivated in their continuum and are perfecting right now. And it too is a path that all those who will become bodhisattvas will cultivate within themselves. Therefore, there is nothing superior to this. Hence, living one's life in this way is worthy of praise.
나디네 데더 또네 데니게다 탑시 야마데와의 공발에 데네 산조고와 톱고 요바디 델라디나 산요 마 톱나마데셴 탑시 메바데 하고네 또네 니 초리 람니 침바메바 가자남기 루세데 전주세마 남기 람 초리와데 고메알레 아다디 디곰네 디기리에 선비게 침바지게 되바 침네 되고 말레스 제사 동반이 양야 검네 디기리에 다 전주세마 검나 디기리에 선비 삼단 두 되베 되바 마침바체 지나다 탑지부 검제 시라 마곰바이나 디 지금이노스 비게다 니가 고금고도 선비게 도시네 람 초려와라 아니 침바메 바제 되바 마침바 니가 고금고도 선비 도시네 키엔제네 전주세마는 유도스 냠는 거리 냠는 나나디 군노 전주세미 군네라 뭐 아니 라신이 마주바 삼다지 냠는 지다디 탑시 송르게 돈에 냠는 지다리 디 냠는 지다디 전주세마는 냠는 지다리에서 마도 단 년도에다 라자다 현다기 되게 냠는 지기고 말해서 전주세마는 냠는 지다리에서 온 거다.
The next verse then, realizing that it is the way of those of good fortune to not be content with either path alone. Realizing that refers to realizing that not only is it imperative to practice the union of method and wisdom, but that there is nothing superior to that. So having come to this understanding, then the bodhisattva will guard themselves at being content with either path alone. So just as was mentioned earlier, one needs to look within and see if one has an inclination to either the method side or the wisdom side, and guard against coming under the sway of such an inclination, but rather to ensure that one applies oneself to the cultivation of both the method and wisdom side, and ideally practices in the way that has been described, both in meditative equipoise and in subsequent attainment. This is the way bodhisattvas practice, and only bodhisattvas practice. Hearers and solitary realizers are those of the Theravada inclination. They are striving for a different goal. So they do not need to practice with the union of method and wisdom because they are not striving to achieve the goal of enlightenment. But for those who are on the bodhisattva paths or aspire to, they need to practice in this way.
다 기저 가래 주변에다 뭐라지길래 전주 샘다 동바인도 베시럽 되기요 말데 이내야 게매바 이내다 아주기 군노들이야 심지어 탐지 대화대 대나 삼바다 심지어 동안에 자고도 대인장에 심지어 탐지 상요고방 토고도 샘비게 심지어 탐지 상요고방 토벌쇼 샘비 삼로시다 대인장에 상요고방 토비 칠도니 당아주기 기회 자와 야지가래 체비나 지금 디던다 지기에 샘비 삼다 지체 지사당의 이제 되게 계획자와 가르치베네 디차산 제베나 지금 아주 나와나 하신지 랑응원이 주바 랑 강례 뭐되바 랑응원이 주부 두두 제사오기네 메야 선배 데버 주바 세야데 자오기네 메 선배게 삼다제 네 두신의 삼다위 하는 아주 기저 가르치베네 다 되네 시간 주이나 두신의 장도 시야기 디차고르와 되네스
ordinary practitioners such as ourselves, we have yet to realize bodhicitta, we have yet to realize emptiness. Nevertheless, we should practice in accordance with our capacity in the same way as the bodhisattvas do. In our meditation, we need to cultivate compassion and bodhicitta, and we need to reflect on reality, reflect on how all phenomena abide. And then what we realize then in our meditation, we need to keep in mind, to keep present in mind, whilst we engage in our daily activities. And we need to do this because despite not having generated bodhicitta or the wisdom realizing emptiness, we do have the aspiration to do so. So to fulfill that aspiration, in meditation we need to cultivate bodhicitta and the wisdom realizing emptiness, and then sustain that motivation throughout our day, throughout our activities, ensuring our activities are virtuous, And they're done with a motivation of bodhicitta as well as with an awareness of emptiness.
다 도초기 기부숨게 람니림베기 당 저게 자주 람지림바 디고르마 셰차오레 나덴마 나 제마딜라 당 저게 나게 냠된 제타 디고르마 이도아 딘마 되수야제 이제 나세디다 나게 냠된 제타로 간 지고레 나세디 간 지레고레 또다 나니 캬바르 가르세 제자 다 나게 냠된 제타디 간 지고레 세지 나덴마
Of the trainings that are shared with practitioners of initial capacity, the trainings that are shared with a practitioner of intermediate capacity, and those trainings which are unique to a practitioner of supreme capacity, we have now completed all three of those. The next week then, we'll start with the next outline, and there we'll look at have an introduction to how one practices in the tantric way, the differences and the similarities between the tantric approach and the sutra approach. So that's where we'll commence next week. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We're told to cultivate the understanding of emptiness by meditating on selfless as a person. Now, when we achieve the realization of selfless as a person, we enter equipoise on the space-like emptiness. Is that emptiness the generality emptiness of all phenomena, or is it the selfless as a person in the space-like meditation?
When meditating on the selflessness of persons and coming to a realization of the selflessness of persons, one abides in that realization of emptiness. And if that is the space-like meditation on emptiness, does that mean one is realizing then the emptiness of all phenomena or just of the self?
Yeah, well, it's like on the path of preparation, you intellectually realizing emptiness of self as a person. Then you achieve direct realization of emptiness. And you were told to meditate on the space-like emptiness. So, is that space-like emptiness still just the specific emptiness of the person, or is it the generality of emptiness?
Yeah.
당봉아 저기 강사를 파시시에 디간데 제바제제 강사기 된도 동방이 강사 코로나랑요만이 마루바 동방이 도로와 니도 차이비기 제라다 율가라 남칼 삼다베나 수수 풍부의 삼다베 가르르 삼다베니 삼다베기 디 강사의 시용아저 동방이 삼다의 김천 될 때네 김천 사바 현다 삼당고 말 대시 가사 다음에 삼당에 제바제비 김천 삼다 다가랑기 디 때네 율가를 삼당 동방이 삼다면은 남사 동방이 또 도구를 해제 대신 디 남가 답에 동방이 세대 남가스는 벨샤로와 대시세 남가 답에 동방이 세 남가세 남가 따불라기도 따불라니 벨이 저 남가스는 따이도 토로 균님에 동상지마도 민도와 진짜 매반자 대시 동방이 공배 갑라 동방이 또 불러들라 가른 남고 가른 미고서네 강라에 마도 랑운도 동상지마도 가능한 거 말했지. 남카를 빼샤래 마도 남카 따비 동반이라고 진짜 남카 디벨을 샤버래 빼. 남카들 토래다 가이메바 만주기 저 디나시 토래 가이 동상지마도 비교를 세. 디래.
First, as you said, one meditates on the selflessness of persons and realizes that the person is empty of true existence, and one realizes emptiness in relation to the person. Thereafter, one applies that to any or all other phenomena, such as the aggregates, through the same reasoning. One doesn't need to cultivate new reasoning, the same reasoning, and realizes that they are empty. And in this way, one realizes that all phenomena are empty. So there is that sequence. And then in terms of space like emptiness, we should understand that expression as being an illustration as opposed to something different. Space like emptiness, relate to that term as being an illustration rather than something other than that. Okay? So it's as you said, you realize emptiness in relation to the person, then using the same reasoning, you apply it to an other phenomenon or all other phenomena and realize that they are all empty of inherent existence through that same reason.
My problem, when I meditate on emptiness, I cannot separate the emptiness, space like emptiness, or the emptiness. I cannot separate that from the object that is empty. My mind keeps bringing up the person, because this is specifically the emptiness of the person. So somewhere I can't let go of the conventional person.
So when I realize emptiness of the person, I struggle to let go of the conventional person and just have the object emptiness.
Or even the inherent existing person.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
내가 저기 가사스 동반이 고도 삼다제 고 제바제 가사 고 당보 시래 가사라 삼다가 주시로 지상 가사디 아주 로라 간스 능도 저 나와나 신지 간에 두마 제바제도 풍보되네 제바제도 풍보대로 로소 가사디 녀시요 말와 진예 매 니고 말와 나 메녀바 나나 풍보디기 가사 레버스는 풍보디야 가사 차고 말 지상 지도 가사세디 되네게 제바제도 균에 많이 해서 차고를 통고 말다지 많이 하지 균에 통하면 많이 해서 차고 지산 통하면 많이 받을 동바지 마도 레고 동사실이고 같이 많이 해봐 코로나 한 먹고 마통아 코로나 동바지 제가 동바지 차고로 와 이제 차고 데네게 동바에 삼 데네게 삼다 비급라 가사디 가사 능고 말와 다 양 델레 삼르디 샨다 따셔바네 양 술이야 어디 가사 양지 통영가 로래 레용으로 마도 데니기 또 데니도 제바제도 진짜 다 가질래 가사디 가민도와 삼비기 동상하지 마도 녀매 그랬다 디기 내갑긴 로디기다 동반이 동산 마도 셴가야 동고 말아 나 델레 바되어 삼르디 양지 파 디파 삼르 파 여성외나 아직 현다 다 통비 삼르로 현다 기용으로 와. 이 안에 쪽스만 그 안에 곧 딱다면이 딱다들 얘기 매베다. 내가 제디니 지게요. 일단
Engaging in the meditation, you first, as you do, you see how the self appears. Then you see that the self appears as entwined and not separate from the aggregates. So you search for it as you do, and you don't find it. You look in the way that you search, and you look in all those different manners or different ways, and you do not find it. It doesn't exist at all in the way that it appears. It's empty of existing in the way that it appears. And that in that realization, all that can appear is emptiness. Then the mind will move from that realization to whatever else. And then if whatever else happened to be the truly existent person, it will be there again. So the realization of emptiness is just emptiness. But if the realization of emptiness is fleeting, it will appear, it may appear then that you don't only get the realization of emptiness because the conventional person arises again so very quickly. But if emptiness has been realized, just emptiness will appear to the mind. But it may be followed almost immediately by the conventional person.